roughly parallel. And so we can think of geological time, like how long would it take for a river to migrate 8 miles? Well, how long would it take for it to migrate 50 miles? And so if we and it makes sense, people build cities on the edge of water. And so, it fits together pretty strongly. And then right now, the last time I was in Egypt was in April, in front of the Sphinx, you can see the water table is rising again. And
here we go, right?
It's happening. It's there. And so, and you can also see from the fertile band where it's lush and green, and then when it's desert, that this is all related. And so, yes, I think it makes a lot of sense. And then you see the causeways would have gone right up to the water, and if you were on a barge, you'd just walk right up onto the causeway into the temples. So painting that is very satisfying, and we've actually created some very, very good 3D animations that reconstructs that. And it's so satisfying for me to see it that way, because I just feel like my whole soul relaxes and goes, finally, that's the way it used to look. And so, I'm convinced. And then that also contributes to the notion that it couldn't have been 2450 BC because it wasn't long enough for the river to migrate.
That's exactly right. How did they move the blocks? Millions of blocks. How did they move those things?
Okay. Well, first of all, we call them sea trains here, light rapid transit. I'm looking for the word. Every city has their own little trains that go.
They call we in St. Louis. They call it the Metro Link.
The Metro. Okay, fine. One train is 9 tons. Okay. Now imagine a group of us sitting in our house and go outside, and we're going to be taking a train a minute and putting it on the roof, just us. And then, well, what if we had 2.3 million of these trains, right? And where are we going to stand when we're lifting them up and putting them on the roof?
Exactly.
So this idea of ramps doesn't make any sense. These stones were 20, 40, up to 200 tons. These trains are 9 tons, right? So, so we don't have, even if we had all the cranes on the Giza Plateau, they've tried to reconstruct pyramids with cranes and with our technology, and they can't do it.
They can't do it.
And I don't know if you saw that show. I got such a kick out of it, and they were reconstructing Stonehenge, and they built it out of styrofoam, and they had to, have this huge area where they did it and then ship it to try to erect it. And they were having the hardest time. They were so proud of themselves because they did it, but they weren't working with stone. They were working with styrofoam, and they still couldn't do it.
They still couldn't do it. That's right.
Okay, so the only answer is anti-gravity. And, well, then you think, well, how did they do that? And so that is a form of levitation. And so I've had visions of how this worked, but it also fits with the Hindu Vedic tradition of siddhis, S-I-D-H-I-S, which are bilocation, manifestation, alchemy. There's 6 of them, and they all involve the transmutation of the atom. Now, if you think about back to what Chris Dunn was saying and other, and this makes sense to me, that there was a charge that was building in the underground passageways. The passageways were limestone aquifers, and then there was a honeycomb, which is the 5-sided honeycomb shape of also man-made passages under. The water was running there. It built a charge. The way the pyramids were insulated with the casing stones ended up having stones of high conductivity and stones of low conductivity interfacing with each other like an insulated wire, building a charge. So the water molecules would go through granite passageways, which granite is a transmission stone. It's got crystal in it, and it emits radon gas. And so what you've got is these zigzag patterns, and Imato has done work with if you keep you pour water from one side to the other, and they were using this in Bolivia and Tiwanaku and the Acapana pyramids. So all of these techniques were being used in other places. So anyway, the water builds a charge, and blows apart, and then you've got the oxygen and the hydrogen. Well, our physical bodies are also 70% water. And so there's a way that we could build a charge in our own bodies. And so there's the human divining rod function, where high-level initiates that were able to handle a huge capacity of energy through their bodies, the energy coming through the pyramids, through pyramid fields, through the limestone aquifers, and through these passageways that go all the way to Saqqara and probably all the way to Dashur, all the way on the north side at Abu Rosh, and all this is diagrammed, and there's animations of it in the Pyramid Code. All of this working together with sound and light technology, in addition to what's called the schist disc. Are you familiar with that?
No, tell me about that.
Was found by Walter Emery, and again, there's pictures of diagrams of how it worked. Hollow thing in the middle, something that looks very much like a propeller, only the blades are flat. But if we can lift a plane up with them and fan a room if they're tilted. So it's similar technology. And then they had these stone tubes that would fit over the top, and these would spin. And this is Hakim who would talk about this, and it would drone. It was at 8 megahertz, the frequency of the Earth. So imagine hundreds of initiates who were trained to handle a huge amount of energy, all of this water being charged through sound and light technology, and the droning of the schist disc and there's a magnifier that's with it, and this is all in the Egyptian Museum, and several of them relaying. And then they had the Walter Emery found these crystal bowls at Abu Ghraib. I mean, all of this it's much better if you can see it in action, but these incredibly laser-cut bowls that actually look like satellite dishes, so relaying from one site to the other. So you can imagine the huge amount of energy that they were able to build a charge with, and then it actually was able to transmute the atom, and that's where you get levitation.
Now, in order, though, Carmen, to, let's say, get these huge blocks up, hundreds of feet into the air in order to get them way up at the top, this whole area must have been that way, right?
Well, that's the point. I call it the Band of Peace. And so when you think of a 12 to 15-mile expanse with 22 pyramids, with hundreds of initiates around each one, and the cavities inside the pyramids, each having their own resonant tones. So it's like if you've ever seen a wind harp.
Oh, sure. And let's talk more about this. And also, I want to get your take on Coral Castle down in Florida, that 102-pound man, Edward Leeds Scullin, developed. Well, next hour, we'll open up the phone lines, give you an opportunity to chat with Dr. Carmen Boulter. Incredible information. Incredible indeed. And we'll be back with her in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. We'll get back to the levitation. Do you also think that they might have used sound, Carmen, some kind of resonance in order to vibrate these blocks?
Well, absolutely. And what I was saying just before the break was that the chambers inside the pyramids weren't tombs. They never found a mummy there, any mummies in any pyramids ever, and that doesn't deter people who want to believe that. But each of the chambers is shaped differently, and each of the angles of the pyramids are at a different angle. And then there's 3 different chambers in most of the pyramids, and so they create a harmonic within themselves. And most people who have been there, who've toned a little bit, hear this, Paul Horn and all of that, this incredible resonance that goes in. So if they're anything, they are sound devices. And everything was about vibration. And it still is, even, the vibration of sound of how our voice sounds. We can tell if someone's angry or upset, not depending on the words, but depending on the sound. And so, yes, that was a key. Sound and light technology was key.
How did they know how to do this? We can't even do it now.
Well, we're at the lowest end of we're in a dark, dark age right now. And we're unplugged and dumbed down and, pharmaceutically drugged and all of that. And so, and told, full of propaganda and full of fear. And so we have the least capacity to understand this or do this. And even so, there's lots of people that are curious that on some level are fascinated by all of this. So on some level, we want to know, we hope it's possible. But if we kind of erase the board and think of empowered human beings who functioned in a different way, who had different values, who had different disciplines, then we can start to paint the picture. It's meant to be secret, I think. even in the golden age times when they were doing this, I think there was a populace outside of that were in the fields, doing regular farming kinds of activities, and that the whole population wasn't involved in high-level initiation.